So again, this is 1.6. Just a quick reminder, those that came in late, our test over 1.1 to 1.6 is this Thursday. So we're doing 1.6 today, and then we'll do a couple of days of review. Your 1.5 and 1.6 practice assignments are due tomorrow. All of the 1.1 to 1.4 practice assignments were due on Friday. Okay, so if you have those to turn in today, you'll be turning them in late, but we'll talk about more of that later. So let's get through our 1.6 notes. So 2-step equations. On Friday, that was 1 step. Yes.
We have our calculator.
Oh yeah. Will you actually? They're back here. If one in the black basket. If one person from each table group wants to get calculators for their group, y'all can come back and grab them. Yeah, get your 4-function calculators. Yes. Okay, so yeah, you can have your 4-function calculator. That's the 4-function calculator is what you're going to get to use on the test. So make sure you're not using that full Desmos calculator, because that you won't get to use that on the test. So you want to know how to do these without that. All right, so solving equations. Y'all stop the side conversations now, please. Solving equations, we are trying to isolate the variable is the goal. So we do the inverse operations or opposite operations to move things across that equal sign. Okay, so if you want to, go ahead and separate the left and right side of your equation. You can go ahead and I'll go ahead and do this on all of these before I change my color of my pen. Okay, so we're going to separate where that equal sign is. So draw a line separating the left and right side of your equation. Okay, so we're going to get the letter, that's your variable, is what we're trying to isolate. So we want to get n by itself. So when you have a coefficient, that's the number being multiplied, and you have a constant, that's a number without a variable being added or subtracted, you have to move the constant first. Okay, so when we look at this, we are going to first move the constant. Okay. So move the constant by adding or subtracting. Okay, so it's going to be by addition or subtraction that we move that constant to the other side. Okay, so in number 1, I'm going to move that 6 over by subtracting because it's the opposite. Okay, so then what I do to one side, I do to the other. It eliminates the 6 on the left and leaves me with 3n equals, and then negative 12 minus 6 is negative 18. So then step 2 is to move the coefficient. That's the number being multiplied in front of the variable. So you're going to move the coefficient by multiplication or division, depending if it's a fraction or an integer. Usually it's going to be division. Like here, this 3 is being multiplied by n, so to move it, we're going to divide. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. So it reduces to just n on the left, and then negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. Okay, so we're just going to go through that process. So here we're trying to isolate the y. We want to solve for y. So first we're going to get rid of this negative 3 that is the constant by adding. And that gets our variable term by itself. Now we are going to get rid of the coefficient, that negative 3 that's being multiplied. So we're going to divide that negative 3 to the other side. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So I get -5 is my y. Okay, so move the constant and then move the coefficient. Okay, we need to be able to do that with decimals as well. The process is exactly the same with decimals. Okay, so we're going to do plus 1.2. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Now this says 2.0. Do I have to write 0.0? 0.0 is not necessary. I'm just going to write -2d. And then 4.8 plus 1.2 is a 6. I don't have to put 0.0. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of the coefficient. The coefficient is -2. It's being multiplied. So I'm going to divide. So that leaves me with -3, because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Now 4 looks slightly different because of the fraction. You've got, instead of 5x, you've got x over 5. So we still first need to move the constant by opposite operation. Then to get rid of the coefficient this time, technically the coefficient is 1 over 5. So we could divide by 1/5. But instead of dividing by a fraction, what's much easier is just to multiply. Because that 5 is being divided, the opposite is to multiply. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides. Okay, so we've got -25 times 5 is going to be -125. All right, and then let's see, let's scroll down here. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to erase those. All right, so now on this one, we're going to isolate our b. Oh, not b over 4, just the b. Might not let me highlight just the b. It's being funny. All right, so our constant that we want to move first is a positive 50. So we are going to subtract 50. All right, so that's going to leave us with negatives. Hold on, I've got to close and reopen this because my pen has stopped working. So let me save, close, and reopen. See if my pen will work again. Of course, when I'm trying to record is when it's going to stop working. Y'all stay with me. We've just got a few left. All right, so we get -60 here on the left, and that leaves us with -b over 4 on the right. Y'all, please stop your side conversations. We're almost done. Then you'll have time to work. All right, so now I want to get rid of this. This is a -4 that's being divided. So I'm going to multiply by -4 because I want the negative to cancel and the 4s to reduce. So I'm multiplying this side by -4, and I get rid of the 4 and the negative over here. So then a negative times a negative is a positive, and the 4 times 60, 6 times 4 is 20, so it's 240. All right, on number 6, we're trying to isolate the variable d. So we're going to subtract the constant because that's the opposite or inverse operation. Now this one leaves us with 3/4 D and negative 30. So when you've got a numerator and a denominator, Kobe. Wait, we're almost finished, then you can go, yeah. We've got a numerator and a denominator. So you can do this in one step, but I think for a lot of you, especially since we're using the 4-function calculators, you can only do one multiplication or division at a time in your calculator. So it may be better for you to separate this into 2 steps. So I'm going to get rid of the divided by 4 by multiplying by 4. So I'm going to get rid of the denominator first, which is going to leave me with 3D equals negative 120. Then I'm going to get rid of the 3 by dividing. So I got rid of the denominator first, and now the numerator, which gives me negative 40. Okay, so you can split, when you have a fraction like 3/4, you can separate getting rid of the denominator and the numerator into 2 separate steps, which will make your life easier with the 4-function calculator. Okay, so let's try one more like that. We're going to get rid of the 6 first. We're going to subtract it from both sides. That leaves me with negative 2/3 Z equals 4. So first I'm going to get rid of the denominator. The denominator is 3, so I'm going to multiply by 3. That leaves me with negative 2Z equals 12. Now I'm going to get rid of the negative 2 by dividing it over. And so that leaves me with Z equals negative 6. Okay, so yes, technically I could do this in 2 steps, the subtraction and then multiplication or division, but I'm breaking this fraction down into 2 steps. So it ends up being a total of 3 steps when we have a fraction like that. All right, now we're just going to try this 3-step one. This is going to bring back in what we were doing last week with distribution. So we're going to distribute the negative 2 that's outside the parentheses first. So that gives us negative 2A minus 6. And then we've still got that plus 5, and it all equals 1. So now I can combine some like terms over here. These constants can be combined. So I've got negative 2A minus 1 equals 1. Now I'm going to do my process of moving my constant with inverse operation, and then moving my coefficient, in this case by dividing it over. Don't forget to divide that sign as well. So we end up with A equals negative 1. Remember, anytime you solve an equation on any of these in this entire practice, we could take what we got, in this case negative 1, and plug it back in the original equation, and it should make it true. So if I plugged in negative 1 plus 3 is 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Plus 5 is indeed 1. It checks out. The left should come out equal to the right. So for any solving equations, anyone where you're solving for a variable, you can take that variable and plug it back in for that letter in the original equation, and the left should equal the right. Any questions about those? All right, I'm going to give you the practice then for this, and then you'll have the rest of class to practice, finish the 1.5 and do the 1.6. Both due tomorrow.